Welcome to our overview of tcDocs. tcDocs is an application which handles the most important responsibilities of transaction coordinators: timeline management and effective communication with the representing agent, aka your client, and of course their clients, the buyers and sellers. It's not a CRM and is solely meant to be used by a single transaction coordinator or a team of coordinators. The program can handle any number of transactions and team members. When you first log into tcDocs, you'll see that it's divided into two different categories: listings and transactions. tcDocs handles listings as well as transactions, and just to be clear, transactions in tcDocs are those property deals which involve a signed around purchase and sale agreement, whereas listings deal with properties involved in the preparation and marketing of their sale. For the purposes of this demo, we'll focus on transactions, but we will touch on listings near the end, as there are many similarities between the two. Also, you will see at the top of the page the main navigation menu, which appears on all pages throughout the application. This menu includes all of the primary sections of the application, and we will touch on each section as we go through. I'm now going to go into transactions. So we are now on the transactions page. The layout of this page is typical throughout the application. The primary information is always in the center of the page. On the left side, you will find the Actions menu, and on the right side, you will find the Filter menu. The functions in each of these menus are fairly self-explanatory. In the center of the page is where all of your transactions are listed, and at the top, you'll see a search field where you can quickly find a transaction or transactions by simply entering a few characters. For example, a street address, agent, brokerage, or any other data tied to a transaction. What I'm going to do now is go ahead and select one of the transactions, go directly into it. We're now in an individual transaction. At the top of the page, below the main navigation, is a green menu, which allows you to jump to different pages within a transaction. This first page is the Transaction tab where you enter all the contract and property information. For example, the property address. You've also got information such as the sales price down here, purchase price, and you've also got various dates like the important ones for mutual acceptance as well as closing date. The next tab in the green menu is the Participants tab. Contacts in tcDocs are divided into two categories: associates and buyers and sellers. Associates are the professional participants such as agents, lenders, and those associated with title companies, whereas buyers and sellers are, well, buyers and sellers. There's actually two ways you can add people or participants to a transaction. One, you can use the search field, which is provided on every different role here, and I'll click right into one for the seller. You can use the search field, which searches the tcDocs database for contacts from a previous transaction, or two, you can via the green button, which adds a new contact to tcDocs and automatically ties the contact to the transaction. So if I wanted to add a co-agent to this particular transaction, if I wanted to add a existing person that I know is already in the database, I can just type a few characters and go ahead and select Charlie Goodwin in this case, and it will add Charlie Goodwin as a seller's co-agent to this transaction. If I don't like that selection, I'll go ahead and hit the blue X here, and that clears the selection. We can restart. If it's somebody that you know isn't in tcDocs, you've tried various combinations and you just don't come up with a person there, you can hit close. You can then hit the green plus. That will take you to the new page, and then you can start typing new information for this new person that is part of the transaction. So you can go through and type all of their various attributes here. Once you're done, you can hit save and close, and you are taken right back to the transaction participants, and they are now a seller's co-agent. At the bottom of the participants page, you can scroll down here and you will find two fields for followers. These fields allow you to add contacts to your transaction who may not be named specifically on the contract, but need to be kept in the loop of the progress of the transaction. Examples might be agents' assistants, co-agents, or the interested parties, say in an estate sale. Okay, we're now going to move on to the next tab here, which is the Summary tab. I'm going to click right on there. Once all of the data has been entered into a transaction, this page will automatically display a summary of the transaction's main details. In the Actions menu, you have the option to print this PDF to the 2A PDFs, which you send to the participants. On the right-hand side, you can filter out as much of the information based on who you would like to send to. For example, you may want to send this summary to the other agent to confirm timelines and may not want to include your client's contact information. The summary page also contains links to the participants' pages where you can edit their details if you discover any issues or would like to add any more information. So for example, you can jump right into the buyers here and you can edit any information. So you can change an email address. It's not .net, it's .com. So we can save and close there. And now that's updated and ready to be sent out. Once again, the way you send the summary, you can go to print and print as a PDF and send this to the interested parties in the transaction. A logo may be added as shown in the upper right-hand corner of this summary. This logo can either be your agent's or your own. We'll see in just a little bit how you can add various other data like notes and miscellaneous tasks to this summary, which will basically capture all of the critical dates for your transaction. We're now going to jump over to the next menu option. Within the green menu of a transaction, I'll jump over to Tasks. Tasks are really the heart of tcDocs. Tasks are imported into a transaction via your checklist templates. We can come over here to Import Checklists, select that, and as you can see, there's already been a few checklists that have been imported, and they're signified by a grayed out line. But what I wanted to emphasize is that you can import any other lists at any time, and you can import one list or you can import many different lists. So if you find that perhaps there's an appraisal for this particular property, you can check that and you can import it, and they get blended in with the current checklist. And what you can also see is that all of the tasks' due dates are automatically calculated from a various set of drivers, such as mutual acceptance or closing date, as well as the number of days saved from mutual acceptance or the closing date. I will say that the more detailed your checklist templates are, the easier your transactions become over time. What I want to do is quickly jump out of this transaction and go have a look at some of the checklist templates that we have in here. Jump into templates at the very top navigation menu, and I'll go into checklists. And here we have just an example set of checklists that we provided just for this overview. It kind of gives you just an idea of what's possible. Again, the more detailed your checklists are, the easier your checklists or your transactions are going to become. So what you can do, you have the option to either have one checklist for all of your transactions. So for example, I'm going to just jump into the state of Washington one here, and it has all of the various tasks for a transaction inside one complete checklist. It's not per se recommended. What we do recommend is that you break them out as finely detailed as possible. So what you can do is you can break them out per agent. So if an agent has various requirements that they like to see from transaction to transaction, you can actually put those tasks within a separate checklist like this. So for each agent that you support, you can have a different checklist. You can also add checklists per contingency. So if you have, say, inspections, you can come in here and create a checklist primarily just for inspections that contains all of the various information for that particular checklist set. Once again, these checklists are completely customizable by you. What I'm going to do is basically go right back to the transaction that we were in. I'll jump over here to transactions, go back into the transaction that we were looking at, and I will go into the tasks window. And what I'm going to do is, like I said before, the dates are automatically calculated just from a couple pieces of information, in this case, mutual acceptance and closing. What I'm going to do is say, I'm going to change the mutual acceptance date. I'm going to go back to the transaction, and if you can kind of keep an eye on this 11/11 date that this task was due, I'm going to change the mutual acceptance to, say, today, the 12th. I'll come back here to tasks, and now all of a sudden you see the task due dates have been changed for this particular one, and any other task that is dependent on those tasks, they are all changed. As you can see, there's many different tasks that are driven by a closing date, which is indicated by CLS. You've got a 5-day look back from the closing date. You've also got closing dates of 0 days from the closing date. So in this case, currently the closing date is 12/22. I'm going to come back here to the detail page. I'm going to change the closing date to the 27th, change the possession date to 27th. Come back here into the tasks, scroll down, and now all of a sudden you see all your tasks change from 12/22 to 12/27. Again, I just want to reemphasize, dates are automatically calculated based on the contract acceptance and closing dates within tcDocs. And if either of these dates change, all of the dates will automatically update for all of the tasks. You can actually add tasks to the to the transaction summary by coming in here and telling which ones you would like to display. You do that by selecting a key symbol next to each task. So I'm just going to add a bunch of tasks here that I want to display into the transaction summary. I'll scroll back here, go to summary, and now all of a sudden you see all of these tasks that we indicated. They do appear in the transaction summary. So again, once again, this is completely up to you how you want to convey the information in the summary and which tasks are more important than others. I'm now going to go to the next green menu option, which is status. Select that. Status is essentially a formatted to-do list for the transaction. It's formatted as an email because you can actually send this to your agent directly. How often is completely up to you. And as you can see, it's broken up by critical dates and milestones there. And you've also got due date categories. So if there's any tasks outstanding, you'll see a red area labeled outstanding. In this particular case, you've got a few tasks that are due today, and those have got their own section. And then you've also got a look ahead section, which contains basically the rest of the tasks that are due in the transaction. You'll notice for a few of the tasks that they have this little icon next to them, which looks like a little eyeball. And this actually indicates a private task. And so though it is shown on this page, it will actually not be sent out with the email. So this is kind of to mark subtle reminders to you to do something within the transaction. But again, it's not going to be shared with anybody that you send this email to. You've actually got an email signature as well that's included in the status email. And this is drawn from your profile within your profile settings within tcDocs. You'll also see within this email, there's little arrows pointing right and left just below the label of the transaction. And if you go ahead and select these, what this does is it jumps from transaction to transaction so you can quickly view or review all of the status within each transaction and see how it's going. So you can see some of them here basically they either have today due or not today due. Again, you have look ahead basically in every single one. Next, I'm going to jump over to the next screen menu option, which is documents. Documents are actually another checklist within tcDocs. You can keep track of the documents received as well as their signature status. Similar to tasks, you can actually select more than one folder that you want to extract from your templates. So in this case, I'm going to just add a couple more checklists to this. And there you see it's added to the display. I can come in here to each folder. I can display each of the documents within this folder. And essentially what you do is you can mark off the signatures that you receive. And gradually, as you see, they can increment until you get to the completed status. If you want to bypass the signature process and just receive the document, you can select fully execute. And you can do that on all of them. We'll just come in here and complete all of these. Scroll down. Forgive me, it's taking quite a bit of time, but there's a lot of documents within this folder. I'll just keep going. Of course, we're fast forwarding any time here because normally you wouldn't receive them in this quickly. So now what it's showing is that you've got a green folder and all of the documents within that folder have been received. Theoretically, you can do that with each of the documents as you receive them, coming through here. Just mark them off as you go. And eventually, the ideal scenario, of course, is what you'll want all of these folders green. So it does keep track of the documents that you do receive as you go through the life cycle of your transaction. Next, I'm going to jump over to emails. We'll go there. In tcDocs, you have the ability to create email templates for emails you find yourself sending over and over again for each transaction. So at this stage, I'm going to, once again, jump out of this transaction and go over to templates. And so I'll do that there, and I'll go into the, so templates in the main navigation. Then I'll jump to emails. And I just quickly want to show you what an email template looks like inside tcDocs. As you can see, we have what are known as placeholders for transaction information. And these are otherwise known as email codes. So I've just highlighted one there. Basically what this is email code, once again, is placeholder for information. It is essentially capitalized letters, no spaces, they're all underscores, and they're surrounded by square brackets. The power of these email codes is basically it allows you to use these templates for all the transactions without you ever having to modify or retype the information over and over again for each transaction. What I want to do now is jump back into the transaction that we're in and import this email template. So what I'll do is I'll go to transactions, select the transaction again, select emails in the green menu, and I will type a few characters of that template to bring it up. And so what I do is I select the template, and voila, it automatically converts all of the placeholders into real information that belongs inside the transaction. So if you remember, we had a code there for escrow email. Now it actually converts it to a real email address. And the same can be said for all the rest of the codes, where it actually converts information from the code to the real information within inside the email. Okay, that's it for emails. What I'm going to do now is go to the next tab option, which is notes. Notes are multi-purpose. You can basically use them for many things. Very often they're used for including additional contract conditions or for documenting phone calls or other transaction events. You can include notes within transactions by selecting the key next to the description. So I'll go ahead and do that. I'll unselect them first, go to the transaction summary, and as you can see, there's no notes here at all. I'll come back to notes. I'll select the two as key, come back to the summary, and as if by magic, they actually appear at the bottom of the summary. So again, they're multi-purpose. You can essentially use them for whatever needs you have for each transaction. The next option in the green menu is the text agent functionality. You can select that. If you wanted to, basically what this does is it allows you to text your agent on the spot. What it will do is you can text a few characters, whatever you want to type to them. You can hit send text, and if you send it to them, they will actually receive it in their text interface on their phone. And if they reply to you via their text interface, you'll actually get an email back in your email client, whether that's Gmail, Outlook, or wherever. And if you reply to that, they'll actually get a text again. So what you basically do is initiate a conversation between your email and their text interface. Kind of a handy tool. It basically saves you from grabbing your phone and finding their contact information and then sending it. Okay, that's it for the green menu options within a transaction. I'm going to close this. What I'm going to do is go back to transactions at the very top. And now I'm going to go into what's called the itinerary. So we'll select that. The itinerary actually is quite useful. It displays all of the tasks for all of your transactions all on one page. So you can view all tasks overdue, all tasks due today, etc., and all together or separately. So for example, I can just display all of the look ahead tasks, uncheck the today, uncheck outstanding, and now you see all of the look ahead tasks. Little daunting, but if you want to limit this view to say 5 days or even 3 days from today, you can hit the 3, and now you can just view all the tasks due within 3 days from today. Again, you can uncheck look ahead, come into today, and these are all the tasks that are due today. These are actually quite handy, especially if you have an assistant. If you wanted to, you could say, okay, I want my assistant to obtain all legal descriptions. It does happen. So if you wanted to type a few characters of these tasks, you could type in legal, and just the legal description tasks will come up, and they'll know exactly which tasks they need to go and which transactions they need to accomplish these tasks. Another feature of this, if this isn't possible, say for example you can't get the legal description today, you can there's a quick button here that you can hit with a +1. +1 actually moves it to the next day. So I moved both of those days to the next day. Sorry, both of those tasks. And as you can see, they're both due tomorrow now. Okay, if you remember when we talked about status, we were in an individual transaction. Just for reference purposes, we went here, we went to the status, we have the status email, and this is all well and good. It's a status per transaction. However, if you'd like to send out all of the status emails all at once for all of your agents, you can do that via a status system that's built into tcDocs. Essentially what you do is you go ahead and hit this queue status button. It will queue all of the individual status emails within all of the transactions. So if you have 20 transactions here, it'll queue up 20 status emails. But what this actually does now, you basically can come in here, hit the view send status per agent, and what this does is it organizes all of your queued emails into a single email on a per agent basis. So for example, you can scroll down here. I think it's Cindy Windermere here has 2 transactions within our system. So you can scroll down here. Here's the one transaction, and here's the next transaction. So it's actually grouped all of her transactions into one email. So instead of sending her 2 different emails, she gets one email with all of her transactions. And for all of your agents, basically you get a email for each one of your agents sent out. And again, this is completely up to you how often you want to send this. How you send it is just naturally hit the send emails button. It'll do it all at once. As soon as you do that, I'm going to go ahead and hit send here. So now you get a record to say that that was sent. And I'm going to come back here. And now you notice that the transactions have turned green. This green color will actually stay around until the end of the day, and then when you log in the next day, they'll actually turn back to red, indicating that you haven't sent out status again. The last thing I want to show you is listings. So I'm going to jump over here to listings. As I mentioned, listings and transactions are very similar within tcDocs. All of the functionality is there. Basically what's there in the transactions is also available in listings. So if I jump into an individual listing, we also get a green menu, and we get all the same menu options within our green menu area. So what I want to do here, what I do want to show you is that you can actually take a listing and convert it into a transaction. So what you do is normally the life cycle of a listing is that you would go from incomplete to active. And then once the active listing, you have a few offers on it and one of them gets accepted, you select pending. Then you select a pending date. Let's just say it went pending today, which is the 12th. And all of a sudden now you get a create transaction button. I'm going to go ahead and select that and say OK. And now all of a sudden we're taken to the transaction for this listing. And if I jump out of this transaction and go to the overall listings, you see that the transaction is there. And then you would just come in with the particular details for this agreed upon contract. So you would enter a closing date and so on. Of course, you'd want to input all of the purchase price, all of the other information. So now you get closing date information up here. Go back to the transactions. Right, this has been an overview of the main features of tcDocs. If you have any questions, then please let us know anytime. Or if you would like to take advantage of our free 14-day trial, which includes a 1-hour training session, simply go to tcDocs.com and fill out the contact form. Thank you again, and we'll see you soon.